here I am with the Scottish version of Seth Keshel, and not only does he have some great information about today's election, but we might even hear some information from back in the day of the old Scotland. How are you today, Seth?
William, for presenting yourselves on this battlefield, I give you thanks.
You see, I just don't have my kilt on today. You've got the axe, and I should have the kilt on today, but my face painted blue, right?
For a man from Louisiana, you've got quite the fighting spirit.
I love this.
I've agreed on this interview on the pretense only that I do it in my Scottish accent.
Okay, I'm ready for this because I miss hearing the Scottish accent from my home country, right?
Yes, although you spell your surname quite differently than Sir William.
Well, you know why that is. You see, back in the day, that was 500-something years ago, they didn't know how to spell back then. So future generations to now, they learn the correct spelling and how to spell Wallace correctly. So that's why I spell it W-A-L-I-S.
You contend with me that your clan spells your name correctly.
Oh, they didn't spell it correctly, but the clan now spells it correctly.
Well, I came here to talk about electile dysfunction.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what are you finding today?
We find today, I can't do this anymore, William. I'm starting to mix my Scottish with my Australian.
We were starting to mix your Scottish with the election integrity stuff, but we got some good music in the background.
Lindell comes to us with an offering that promises to fix the election problem.
Yeah.
And that is what we put our hopes on. We have a lot of work to do going into 2024. It's a twofold mission. We have to amp up as many votes as possible for our nominee, which I presume is going to be Donald Trump, and then limit fraudulent balloting as much as possible. The ideal way to do that is good legislation. Unfortunately, as we know, the Republican Party all across the country has failed really to pass meaningful reforms, with very few exceptions.
That's right.
There have been a couple little pecks that have been taken out, a couple little reforms, but nothing that's really going to move the needle.
And what's amazing, and you're reminding me of a great point, is that there's a lot of legislatures around the country that have super majorities, Republican majorities, and they still can't get stuff passed because here in Missouri, we had a very important bill that they were going to get passed to be able to help get rid of the machines and everything, and they couldn't even get it out of committee. They couldn't even get it heard in committee, and it's a super majority of Republicans here. And so it amazes me with how many Republicans say they're for election integrity, yet we can't get it out. In Louisiana, and I have two more things about Louisiana, that we had a Zuckerbucks bill, and they couldn't even get that passed. And that was to keep money from big corporations going into elections. And the last I'll ask you, which is a lot of my Louisiana friends don't realize how bad Louisiana elections registrations are. And you're up on these things.
Well, Louisiana's doing the same thing that Kentucky and West Virginia are doing. They're transforming, the voters anyway, the ones who have a say in this, they're transforming from being ancestral Democrats, working men, to being Republicans. Ohio's had the same thing. Ohio's a little bit different than the rest of the states around it, which it has a Republican trend in addition to the working class shift towards people like Trump, but Trump only. So when you don't have a Trump on the ballot, they may not vote Democrat, but they don't come out. So you don't have a supercharged electorate in some of these states unless you have the right candidate. Now, Louisiana has the same issues that everyone else has. If you've seen Chris Jersky's work, if you've seen Dave Clements go down there, Dr. Frank, you know that there's issues with the voter rolls. That your various parishes, how many parishes are in Louisiana? Is it 46?
63.
63. These guys don't maintain accurate voter rolls. So although the progression of the rolls over time may reflect the shift in the trends, if they're not cleaned out from decades past, you have these now digitized registrations that can be used with machines or with mail-in balloting to defraud elections. And you may think that Louisiana is out of play presidentially, but down at the lowest level in the county levels, you can easily sway some of these closer parishes. You've got a lot of parishes that hug the Mississippi River that are in the Delta that are Democrat by an eyelash. So it's easy to manipulate elections that are that close.
What's interesting how you're saying that is they're showing in Louisiana that there's, I think, how many thousands of registrations where we got people that are 160 years old on the voter rolls that are still registered to vote, and the list goes on and on with the bad registrations. And what I like about your information is you don't focus so much on the results coming out of the machines as much as you focus on what's in the registrations that allows for voter fraud or manipulation to be done. Is that correct?
Yeah, I basically make a forecast in reverse. I'm not concerned by what methodology the votes are cast. No, I see hardcore evidence and I can pass that through. But every county or every parish has a finite number of votes that can be cast, and that caps out at how many registered voters there are. Now, are all those registered voters eligible and real? That's one problem we have. But then you have the trends that govern how those votes are going to come out, and those are very solid. Presidentially, they're very predictable. In local elections, they can sway and they can change. That's why you have John Bel Edwards, the Democrat, who's the governor of your state. But when we go into those trends, they're almost unstoppable, barring a change in the political dynamics of the country. It's like when you get into the beach and there's a strong current, it's going to wash you down the shore, no matter how big you are, no matter how good of a swimmer you are. Same thing with these electoral trends, and they manifest themselves in the registration data, especially in states that register voters by party, which Louisiana is one of 32 that do that. So when I've got a county that is a Democrat county that begins a Republican registration trend, the Democrat leads are going to eventually erode, and then they will flip even before the county has a plus positive registration advantage. Pennsylvania is a Republican state by now, but it's got a Democrat +5 registration advantage. Why? Because a lot of the registered Ds vote R. Same thing in Louisiana. Louisiana still has a D registration advantage, but it votes R at the federal level and has in every election since 2000.
This is pretty amazing. What's the worst parish for registrations in Louisiana?
Well, the most fraudulent parish in Louisiana in the 2020 election was easily St. Tammany Parish.
Really?
Yeah, there's probably 10,000 fictitious Biden votes in that parish.
Biden votes?
I can spot them. It's got a very strong Republican registration advantage. There was a record number of new Republican votes for Donald Trump, yet we have just as many votes in the losing column for Joe Biden, which moved the margin of victory for Trump off to the left. It's very easy to spot. I can also find issues in Lafayette Parish. You've got other ones that you would think are rough, but Orleans Parish checks out.
So not only what are the parishes, but what do you think can be done for this? What do you think can be done to be able to help stop this in Louisiana and across the country? Is there something you're working on?
Well, so my second point to my 10 points of true election integrity is to get rid of all electronic voting systems.
Okay.
So my comment that's about to follow is not me saying that I don't want to get rid of machines. But all this stuff can be 99% gutted out if voter registration wasn't corrupted. Whether that means having no voter registration at all, like North Dakota, which happens to have the cleanest election of 2020, or having legitimate voter rolls, which only reflects real voters, that's the best way to clean this stuff up, because the foundation is in the voter roll. This
is what I like about your information. Everybody gets tired sometimes of hearing about how bad the machines are. And whether you agree or disagree, that's not where I'm going right now. I like going where you're going, which is it's in the voter rolls.
Well, so if the machines are the guns, the voter rolls are the bullets.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's a great point.
So what I'm saying is, if you got rid of bullets, you'd have no gun fatalities. That's not me saying I want to grab guns. I'm just giving you a comparison. Machines are glass and plastic. They have to be programmed to malfunction, which you saw in Arizona as one example. If you read the Halderman report in Georgia, you can see another, where the ballot listings of who you voted for may vary from what that QR code says you voted for. But if you got rid of the bullets, which was the voter registration, or cleaned out that, then the guns would not be valuable.
So how can people see your information? Do you have a site or a website or someplace where people can go to not only see your information, but even possibly support your endeavors?
We're at the best part of our Braveheart music in the back.
Oh.
But when we have, I've got several platforms that are useful. Telegram, True Social are my two most prolific ones, at Real S Keshel. And my Substack is a good way to keep up on all my in-depth analysis, which is laid out often in essay form. skeshel.substack.com.
So let's get back to point 7. You were on 8, I think, before. You started at 10. I think you went to 8.
Of the 10 points to true election integrity?
Exactly.
Well, so I did number 2, which is to ban electronic voting systems. So number 1 is voter rolls. 2 is ban electronic voting systems. 3 is voter ID with paper ballots only. So get away from the machines and come voter ID with paper ballots only. 4 is to restrict mail-in voting to overseas military and the legitimately disabled. 5 is to restrict early voting to those who actually can't show up and vote in person on what we call election day.
Exactly.
It's an amazing concept. Number 6, smaller precincts. So we have large counties that have huge precincts, especially the ones that are growing. You probably don't have this issue in some of the smaller parishes, but in the larger ones, I guarantee you've got some that have thousands and thousands of registered voters each.
Exactly.
That mandates that we have mail-in voting and early voting to turn out the voter roll. And then we have point number 7, which is to ban ballot harvesting. So it's not enough just to ban it, you need to make it a felony. Because Georgia and Arizona have ballot harvesting outlawed as well, but there's no real teeth to it. Florida's the only state that I know of that
And
has
I
made
keep
that a
hearing
felony.
the Democrats do it, just the Republicans should do it better. You know,
If you think
band it all together.
that's like Mike Tyson inviting you out to the parking lot to settle a disagreement with a fist fight.
Right.
I mean, come on, the Democrats are going to lose their own game of ballot harvesting. It favors population density. So once Republicans give the green light by participating in ballot harvesting themselves, you're going to have the Democrats are going to go down to the big cities. It's not going to matter in Louisiana because you don't have enough, not a high enough percentage of the state is wound up in New Orleans.
Right.
And your other cities aren't that big. But when you get a place like Minnesota, where 3 out of 5 people live in the Twin Cities, they're just going to go down into the projects and into the inner city
Right.
with a big net and scoop up 1,000 ballots because they know statistically that 9 out of 10 are going to them, even if they
Exactly.
get a Republican ballot for you. You know,
Exactly.
So what are we going to do? We're going to go to the suburbs and go pick up a 55-45 split and use all our money and manpower and time getting a 55-45 split? Or maybe you pick the wrong neighborhood and you get a reverse split against you? Ballot harvesting is a non-starter for Republicans. And now there have been Republicans that have won local races. Like I think the GOP won the House because of ballot harvesting in SoCal and New York.
Right.
But were those races targeted by the Democrats, or was that a sneak attack that will now be accounted for? Because
good
Trump
point.
landed a successful sneak attack on Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin in 2016, and he didn't in 2020 because they knew it was coming.
That's right.
So with the ballot harvesting, number 8 is Election Day as a holiday. Number 9 is reporting requirements for transparency, mainly getting the cities to report votes first. There shouldn't be any issue with that. I don't see why anybody thinks it's okay for these big cities to trickle their votes in for a week after all the other counties
Right,
have
exactly.
reported.
Election day is election
It's just
day.
insincere. Imagine yourself at a poker table with tons of money on the center of the table. And some guy gets to, somebody lays their cards out, and you've got a pair of aces or a trip aces, and somebody gets up to go to the bathroom and comes back and lays down 4 of a kind of something else. You think anybody would go for that?
Nope.
And then number 10 is heavy prison sentences for those who commit election fraud. I think we can all agree on that.
That's great. Man, I'll tell you what, Seth, you're amazing. Thank you so much for not only being on my show, but some of this great information. And once again, they can go to your Substack, Real Seth Keshel, you said?
skeshel.substack.com.
All right, and support you any way they can to help you keep getting the good information out there.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate your show as well.
Thank you very much. Everybody else, please share this information with somebody you think might want to get informed.